pre-flight time. Welcome to pre-flight.
Sounds so psyched.
I am.
Hey!
The soothing sounds of the rain coming through our not at all soundproof studios, lulling me into a good mood. Today we are talking, I believe, number 11 on Paste Magazine's Top 50 Anime Series of All Time. We're going to be talking Hunter x Hunter. And because Hunter x Hunter that we're talking about, that we also ran the 2011, is a remake, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite remake movies. We got some sort of sneak peeks, maybe an Adult Swim single that we don't, I think, know the title for, but we will by the time this airs. We're really pushing the boundaries of how early is too early to record a pre-flight episode and have any idea what's going on. But we're going to do our best to not diminish in any way your pre-flight watching experience. So thank you for bearing with us as we talk Hunter x Hunter. Yay!
How many episodes into Hunter x Hunter's airing are we currently?
We stopped airing it in June of
Did we?
last year.
We did? We finished it?
Yeah.
For some reason I guess I'm just zoned out.
That's cool.
We showed all 148? Mm-hmm. Wow, nice. Well, we did our job, so we can move on. We don't need to talk about it now. Hunter x Hunter is based on a manga that is ongoing from Togashi, who's the creator of Yu Yu Hakusho. And it came out in 98.
Yep.
And it's still being made. He takes long breaks. He takes long breaks of usually a couple years at a time, and then he'll come back and it'll appear, new chapters will appear in Shonen Jump for like 4 or 5 months, and then he'll take another year off, and then he'll come back. Evidently, Togashi does most of the artwork, the drawing and inking and everything himself. So basically, I think he just does it all himself. So he takes his time, does it right, and then takes a break, because otherwise he's going to lose his mind because he's writing it and drawing it and everything. So Hunter x Hunter fans have to wait for long periods of time before new manga comes out. As a result, the first Hunter x Hunter series, which ran for 60-something episodes in 2011, basically shut down because they ran out of story from the manga, and they didn't want to just finish the show. They didn't want to keep going with filler, because all you babies cry about filler so much. So they shut the show down. But then people were very unhappy with the way the show ended, because
ironically,
it turns out when you pull the plug on a story that's only,
a third of the way through,
then it is weird. So then they did an OVA series. So there have been 3 different OVA series that total something like 30 episodes that were released in the early 2000s. And those have never made it over to the U.S. Those aren't available in the U.S. But supposedly they were well received, and they sort of they stopped the 2011 show. Togashi released more volumes, and then these OVAs picked up to just continue the story from the manga. Then a couple years later, they decided to start over, and so then you have the 2011 series, which is the one we aired, which ran for 148 episodes. And that basically retold the story of the original series. It's a different studio. The original series was made by the studio who did Rurouni Kenshin. The new series was done by Madhouse. And basically they retold the whole story, but were a little more faithful to the manga. The original... They had more story to tell. The original anime toned down the violence a little bit because it was airing in a kid's slot, and so they toned it down. This version sort of was much more faithful. So it's a similar scenario to the Full Metal Alchemist thing that happened, where you had Full Metal Alchemist, they ran out of story. Instead of shutting the show down, they kept going and told their own story, and then a couple years later, they remake the whole thing being faithful to the manga. So both series were actually pretty well received when they came out. They were both critically acclaimed and highly regarded. The manga is certainly very highly regarded. It's considered one of the best written shonen series. And the most recent show that we showed was pretty much universal acclaim. It had a pretty big fan base, which in turn bulked up the fan base for the manga. And it did well when it came out. And so maybe there's going to be another series, or maybe they'll pick up more OVAs after, 5-6 years of enough story come in. But I respect his process. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you got it worked out, more power to you.
He evidently early on he would just knock shit out because he had deadlines, and he felt like the art wasn't good enough, and he announced that he was apologizing, and I promised I'm going to redraw it when they collect it into volumes, because he just felt like it wasn't up to snuff. So he's on that grind. So I have for us the Hunter x Hunter Toonami promo from 2016. 2017, when we premiered the show.
Yeah, April, I think.
Every single year, millions of the world's most skilled applicants apply for the Hunter exam. But only a handful make the cut.
Will all of the applicants please enter?
Being a hunter is a dangerous job. You could die at any time for any number of ridiculous reasons.
You know it's a suicide mission, right?
Death is not among my fears.
Let's do this. 1, 2, 3.
Now's our chance, come on!
I'm becoming a hunter no matter what!
Toonami presents Hunter x Hunter. Premieres Saturday, April 16th at 1. You can't spell impossible without possible on Adult Swim.
I like you can't spell impossible without possible. Who wrote that? Is that you or Dennis?
I feel like it would have been me, but I don't remember writing that at all.
It sounds like a Dennis line,
Maybe.
but it's pretty good. No, actually, it's a Gil line. You are good at coming up with those lines that make no sense but sound good. That's just like how you talk.
Yeah.
Just what you say doesn't technically make sense, but it sounds good. So
It's more than the sum of its
most
parts
people
is what
just
I'm
go,
going for.
oh, yeah, okay, all right, that's good.
Let's move this along.
So yeah, and you may have noticed one of our technicians who helps us put on the show was questioning why we didn't pronounce the X. But for those of you who might be watching and don't know, the X is silent. Hunter x Hunter is technically the name of the show. Evidently, Togashi was watching a comedy series where they would repeat a word over and over, and he thought it was funny. And he knew he wanted his show to be called Something Hunter. And so he was just like, Hunter x Hunter, sounds good. So, okay, cool. Not the weirdest origin story I've heard for a name.
Yeah, I don't know the story of the X, if it's X marks the spot because they're hunters, or if it's
I don't know.
just
but
like
he
a
said
design
he always
thing.
intended it to be silent, which makes it confusing for people in other countries who are like,
Yeah.
Hunter x Hunter? Which makes just as much sense as Hunter x Hunter, frankly. So the show is about Gon, who is a young man who he thinks his father's dead, and he finds out that his father is not only alive, but that he is a famous hunter. And hunters in the world of this show are sort of, I would guess you would call them all-purpose.
They're like adventurer, explorer.
They're like Indiana Jones meets superheroes, kind of. It's kind of like My Hero Academia meets Indiana Jones. Like, they go and hunt and tame monsters. They go and solve problems. They're kind of witchers, to be honest. They have special powers. In order to become a hunter, you have to pass an incredibly rigorous training program that only 1 in 100,000 people make it through. So Gon, the main character, resolves to follow in his dad's footsteps and become a hunter so he could find him. And through his training to become a hunter, he meets up with his crew of people. He starts forming enemies. He starts forming relationships. And then the show moves. For a long time, it spends a lot of time in the hunter training because that's sort of the main thrust of the initial story. But then eventually you start digging more into the stories of all of the other members of his crew. And then you also move well beyond the world of the training into the actual larger world and the conflicts that go on with hunters and their powers and their abilities and all kinds of other stuff. The story gets pretty big and sprawling, as most.
Yeah, and then it
shonen
starts to
do.
talk somewhat about like the morality of should you be taming these creatures and finding these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah. Are you exploiting the Pokemon or are you... and then... I think one of the things people like about this show so much is that it, much like One Piece, which is I think the other shonen that does this. You really do learn a lot about the characters that are part of the crew, and their motivations and backstories are just as interesting and detailed as Gon's. And I think it really helps. Like, you know, everyone admires Togashi's ability to have little stories, little arcs that fit neatly within larger arcs and still aren't predictable. It doesn't really follow the shonen formula other than very broadly. You're not like, it's not like you know exactly what's going to happen, which I do think, especially in the later versions of Dragon Ball, you could kind of get to a point where the rhythm was, you know, the same. It was still fun to watch, but it was always surprising. The same, rhythm. And Hunter x Hunter, I think, avoids that, much like Yu did, while still fitting within the larger framework of a shonen series. So then I have a trailer for Hunter x Hunter, and I don't even, to be honest, know what this clip is. I think it's a trailer for the old Hunter x Hunter series, but I might be wrong. Let's find out together.
Our next item is the fabled game known as Greed Island.
The two of us are hunters. We're willing to offer our help in clearing Greed Island.
We need people strong enough to obtain items and then return them safely to the real world.
I'm not playing for items. I just want to get as close as possible to Gene.
Welcome to Greed Island, sir.
Let me guess. This is your first time playing, huh?
This doesn't seem like a game at all. We really are risking our lives here.
Trace on! Attack Killua!
I'm a pro hunter. The name's Biscuit Kruger. I'm going to use my knowledge and experience to give you some much-needed coaching.
You're going freaks, I presume. Let's have a contest, shall we?
I'm almost certain he's a game master.
I think I'll go with an 8-on-8 game of dodgeball.
If he hits us with that ball, we're dead meat!
Glad to see you made it in, Go. This is the game I made with my friends. Hope you like it. Go ahead. Play your heart out.
It's not just fun and games.
So, so that was a promo for the arc, the fourth season arc, Greed Island, which is one of the major arcs in the show. So if you haven't seen Hunter x Hunter and you didn't watch it,
Toonami trailer if you want to play that.
If you haven't seen Hunter x Hunter and you didn't watch it on Toonami, the good news is it's still pretty much streaming everywhere and available on Blu-ray and everything, so you have time to check it out. Much like Togashi's other big work, Yu Yu Hakusho, it's head and shoulders above most other shonen and well worth checking out. So I would urge you to make the time if you're really into shonen and like those sorts of adventure stories.
For sure.
And that leads us to our topic of the day, which is what's your favorite remake movie?